why? Well, why do we see those two different things?
Yeah, there's person to person physiology. That's really it, and you just never know. I'm like, I wish I could give you a good answer for that. But,
Right. I guess there are a lot of variables that could be at play for that.
Yeah. That's honestly, I can't give you a much better answer. Being like, man, physiology is crazy.
Yeah.
It's just really crazy.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good tagline for the episode, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so I'd like to start to round things out with a couple, I guess, well, maybe not simple questions, but a little more general stuff. There's a lot of controversy over belts and knee supports and whether they are helpful or harmful. Could you weigh in on that from, I guess, your background?
Well, those things are, they're tools. They're good and they're bad, and I would have to say that that's person to person dependent as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what we generally don't want to think about these tools as is good or bad themselves. So they are good at some things, but bad at some other things. So what you might gain in some things may cost you in something else. And so what you need to be able to identify is what those exact benefits and risks are, and then what your scenario is, what your situation is, and then if that makes sense for you or not. So, for example, we have actually seen, and some studies have shown that something like a lifting belt
mm-hmm.
actually increases abdominal activation.
Yeah, see, this is funny because I heard someone say that on a podcast like 5 years ago, and I have told my clients about it 100 times since then, and I'm always like, man, I really hope this is right.
Yeah, I mean, it's far from scientifically proven. Like I said, we would need 100 studies or something to really get a grasp.
Right.
And there's always problems with EMG activation stuff. But I can certainly tell you that a lot of the times I've been in the weight room with people, and sometimes people just don't really understand what it means to have your abs turned on.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes the belt itself is a good cue. It gives you an external stimulus to be like, yeah, that's right on. I can feel it push against me when it pushes back, so I can remember to keep that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, so that is also very, very helpful.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I explain it to people is, I say like, okay, the reason, because a lot of people, especially when they start weightlifting or especially when they start CrossFit, which our CrossFit program and our gym has a very, very high emphasis on strength development. So we do a lot of heavy squatting, blah, 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 blah. So basically every single person who walks through our door is squatting heavy. And everyone seems to have this mindset of like, oh, I heard belts are really bad. And I'm like, okay, yeah, if you use a belt to disengage your abs, then sure. Like if you cinch it down to the point that you have to suck in, like, okay, yeah, that's bad. But, I always use the example of hold your arms out in front of you and now push as hard as you can. And you're like, okay, well, you think you are, right? Okay, well, now put your hands against the wall and now push as hard as you can. Sure. And like now you know, right? Like you know that you're pushing as hard as you can because you have that response. And that's what a belt is doing. Like especially when you are not good at bracing, you're going to brace if you focus on that the entire time.
Exactly. So, you can make this argument until you're blue in the face, though. There's counter arguments to that too. So, yeah, I think you just have to come to a philosophical decision on your end as a coach and recognize the limitations. And if it's not working for an athlete or you think it's not, and be able to sort of play back and forth. Just questions like this are not, you just don't have hard answers for them. They're not yes or absolutely no. You have to just understand, okay, maybe this is not working. So maybe you're a person who believes in no belts. But then you got an athlete who just keeps having low back pain or something, or they're having a hard time being activated. Well, maybe you use it, and maybe that tool helps that person activate it, but it doesn't help the next person. It actually makes them turn on.
Right. Yeah.
So you just have to understand that they're tools, and just you use them as best you can.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Now another one that now I know that this is an extremely easy topic to figure out about because it seems to be very well documented or well researched. But you talked about it a little bit earlier when we were talking about the different phases of, the different energy pathways. But you talked about creatine supplementation. Now, what is your opinion on creatine supplementation for a strength athlete?
It's one of the most slam dunk no-brainers out there.
Okay. Now, what about the cycling on and off of creatine, or because that's something that I feel like people seem to disagree on. Also, the importance or necessity of a loading phase of creatine.
Yeah, a loading phase is not going to hurt you, but you don't need to. To me, like, I'm just not interested in that question because it's like, okay, we've done ample studies that suggest the loading phase is not really super important, but creatine is generally very, 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 very cheap.
Right.
It's very, very harmless. So, like, if you want, why not? Who cares? Is sort of my point. It's gonna you should probably be taking creatine for the benefits 4 to 6 to 8 weeks later, anyways. So by that time, you're going to reach the same saturation point. So whether you load it or not, it doesn't matter. Loading only matters if you're trying to maximize creatine in your muscle in the next week or 2 weeks. So if that matters, then go ahead and go for it. But if not, it probably doesn't matter a lot. In terms of cycling, there's no supplement I take year-round, no matter what.
Right.
Now, you don't have to cycle off of creatine. It's not a hormone. Think of it more like protein. Like, you don't cycle off of protein, do you?
Yeah, not at all.
Well, probably not then. But, if you wanted to go some time without it, it's probably not the worst thing in the world. I'm an advocate that real food wins most of the time. So real food should be the base of yours. So if you wanted to go some stretches without exogenous creatine, that's probably fine. But it's nothing like caffeine where you're going to build up a tolerance to it. It's not addictive like that, or it doesn't change any hormonal or any other issues like testosterone or anything would. So it's probably good to cycle off every once in a while, but it really doesn't matter.
Okay. And now as far as like the amount to take, because that's like another thing that I feel like with a Google search you can find anyone from being like, 1 gram a day to like, no, take 100 grams a day. It's like, and then I've even seen things with like calculators based on body weight or whatever. Yeah. What's your opinion on the amount to supplement with?
0.03 grams per kilogram seems to put you in about the right sweet spot, which translates to end up being something like, I don't know, 3 to 5 grams a day for most people. But honestly, if you're a little bit bigger, maybe a little higher. If you're smaller, maybe 2 grams is enough. Yeah. So, like, it's so easy and it's so harmless. I don't measure it at all. Yeah. I just kind of like take a little scoop and
just
go.
Like 1 jug a day and like that's it.
Yeah, just a little bit and go. It's just like whatever. So that's one of the things where I wouldn't say don't worry about if you're perfectly 3 grams or 2.8 grams or like.
Right. Yeah.
Just take 2 to 3 if you're smaller. If you're medium sized, maybe 3 to 5. If you're bigger, maybe a little bit more, and then see how you feel.
Awesome. Okay, so now I want to give you a chance to talk about your study and the funding that you guys need in order to do it. But before that, if just kind of one last thing, if you even have anything, we might have just covered it, in excess, but do you have something that you would consider as kind of like, I don't know the best way to put it, maybe like your open letter kind of thing to weightlifters or something that you feel like, weightlifters should be keeping in mind that you might think they don't, or anything that you would just address to people that compete or anything in Olympic weightlifting that we haven't already covered?
I'll just hit a couple of points quickly. Number one, pay attention to position more. That's one thing I wish I would have done. I didn't really care about. I was fortunate. I moved very, very, very well, and I'm not flexible, but I'm very mobile, so I was generally in good positions. But I never really cared about my low back position, and I'm paying for that one. So just pay about, even if it's not hurting then, just all this stuff we're talking about position is generally important. So, keep that stuff in mind. And if you're 25 years old and nothing hurts yet, well, it might not ever. Right. But what if it does?
Yeah.
So pay attention to position, and that's going to serve you better in the long run anyways. Number two, pay attention to speed. People, even in the weightlifting community, some folks do it well, but people don't understand speed enough and don't spend enough time on pure speed. This is very, very light stuff, and it is very fast, so spend more time there. And then the other one I would say is, be excited for the future. We've got some big things coming down the pipeline, and there's a lot of people like Travis Mash and a lot of other people that are spending a lot of time and energy in this field, and there's going to be more support for it, so you can look forward to more and more people. We got up-and-comers that are just doing amazing right now. And so I think the future for weightlifting is very, very bright in this country.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Now, could you just tell us a little bit about the research study that you're a part of and what you need and why you need it?
Yeah. So we, like, as I mentioned, I run multiple laboratories, and we've got anywhere between 15 and 20 different studies going on at a time. And so what we're generally doing, though, and what we normally do is we beg and scratch and claw for $100 here and $500 there, and we go to all the normal routes, and we try to get money. But what we have to do is we have to kind of beg for it and say like, well, this is so that we can understand muscle aging and we can understand diabetes and stuff. And because if we say, hey, sport performance, we get no money.
Right.
And without money, we can't buy these things, and we just can't do research. It just isn't free. So what we decided to do, and this is honestly Travis Mash is a lot of the reason for this, but he's like, man, people will care about sport performance. The weightlifting community does care. The powerlifting community does care. So we started, this is our first venture into effectively what's called crowdfunding. So this is kind of like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but for science. So it's a website called experiment.com/muscle science. And so what we're trying to do is say, look, we want to take muscle biopsies of a bunch of different people, some high-level athletes and some normal-level athletes, and we want to start looking at their individual muscle fibers. And we can put this in with my colleague Jimmy Bagley, who's up at San Francisco State. He started a muscle physiology lab and combined his equipment with my equipment. We're able to take individual muscle fibers, put them under a laser scanning confocal microscope, and actually image them in full 3 dimensions. So it's just like Tony Stark style, where it's like I can stand there in front of it and flip it and turn in, and we can tag it for proteins, and we can look at the myonuclei, which is the part that holds your DNA and tells your fibers to grow, shrink, or die, things like this. And so we want to study this because we think that we can identify exactly what you mentioned. That we think that these fast twitch fibers, how we started off today's program, and the slow twitch fibers are different at that cellular level. And more importantly, we think that this is going to make a difference in how we train. So we know we already have some preliminary data from elite UFC fighters and other folks that it's just simply different in high-level athletes. We biopsied a guy who was a world record holder in the 60-meter dash and 110-meter hurdles. And, I mean, his fiber type were literally completely different than anything we've ever seen. So we want to just continue to explore these power athletes and these speed athletes, but we want to do it at this cellular level, and that's just simply going to cost some money.
Right.
So we're over halfway funded right now, and the last funding day is November 16th, I think, something like that. So the way it works is if we don't reach full funding, we get nothing. And we're like I said, we're halfway there, so we're going to land, hopefully, if enough people will step up in the next, by November 15th or a little bit earlier, and, just give $20 if you can, $500 if you got it, but 15 will do, $50 here. Most people are donating about 100, and we've got over 115 different people to support, so we're up to over 8,000. We're almost there, and we're going to use this money directly to buy this last piece of this microscope that we need to do this study, and then that's what's going to help us move the needle for the sport performance stuff. So that's what we have going. So if we've helped, and in addition, if you've seen my website or not, but you can go to just my name, andygalpin.com, and on there I give away every video, everything I've ever done, every class lecture, every talk, and I put it up there for 100% free. So that's my hey, I'm going to continue to do this stuff. We make sure that all the studies that we do, we try to publish them in open access, which means any person can, it's not behind a paywall. You don't have to have university access to them. I try to do these podcasts. I mean, this is a couple hours, out of my Friday, but I can do this if I don't have to spend these 2 hours digging for money.
Right, of course.
So, and I'll continue to do these things. I'll never stop. I'll never stop speaking at conferences. I do blog posts and all this stuff, but that only works if I can find the money to do the research, to do the science that I'm here to tell you about.
Right, of course.
So without things like this, we don't have the money. I got to go to the normal grant route, and that just means I have to say no, unfortunately, to doing weightlifting podcasts. Yeah. It's just a time issue. So that's really what it's about. Is you're paying for our time so that we can continue to do stuff, because the government is not going to pay for us to do performance-based research.
But I thought we were making America great again. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. No, could you say that that website one more time where people can go to donate?
So the website you can go to donate is experiment.com/muscle science. And if you go to any of my social media as well, it's just at Dr. Dr. like Dr. Andy Galpin. Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, or my website, andygalpin.com, and you'll have links to all